Welcome to Happy Times and Places, in which I, pedantic Doctor Who anorak Toby Hadoke, ask a special guest to choose a story for me, and I have to see if I can guess what their favourite things about this story are.
Okay, so I am Andrew Cartmel. For my sins, I script edited Doctor Who. I did all of the Sylvester stuff, all of the Seventh Doctor, so I did 3 years. And I was very struck by Dragonfire.
Well, let's not hang around too long, because we need to resolve the cliffhanger to episode 1 of Dragonfire. So this is episode 2, and in whichever form you're watching it, please press play now. It's going to be interesting to see if this camera, which is looking like it's on the Titanic, stays up for the whole of this. It's as wobbly as the Doctor's motivation for hanging off his umbrella at the edge of an ice crevasse. Nonetheless, I am here to accentuate the positive, especially as the person that has chosen this adventure for us to enjoy at my house. Hello, you're very welcome here. Is Andrew Cartmel, who script edited the show. And I guess the argument that this period, this season anyway, because I think the production values drastically improve in seasons 25 and season 26, is whether it is correct to be very ambitious on the budget that they have. And my instincts are always to say yes. There's a phrase in Doctor Who: The Discontinuity Guide, says something like you've got to admire lofty ambitions. They're talking about the Web Planet. And I think you do have to admire lofty ambitions. I think when they wrote this, they thought it would look like Alien, or they had Alien, the film, or Aliens in their, certainly later on in episode 3, Aliens in their mind's eye. And they got this, and the gulf between the two is larger in some sequences than it is in others. But I remember talking to a comedian. Apologies if I've said this in another commentary, but I don't think so, because I've only really thought about it recently, and he said it to me a while ago. Fine comic called Jeff Innocent, who's a very cockney sort of geezer guy, but he likes old telly. He's not a card carrying geek like us. I love Ace's response to the killer alien. And the sparks hang around on the screen, don't they? They burn themselves onto the screen. Yeah. And he said, well, the problem with television now is that they're too busy trying to convince you that it's real. When I watched telly as a kid, they just assumed you knew that. So what he was basically saying was, Juliet Bravo didn't look real on, videotape on an obvious set of a police station, but you accepted that that's what the program makers wanted you to do. And it's not a victory of yours to go, I can see through this artifice. You haven't won anything, except that you've not therefore been as receptive to the storyline and the performances and what the writer is trying to tell you. You don't win by catching the program makers out. And I think we try so hard these days to show how clever we are. I say we, I mean those people that don't like telly like this, modern people. It seems, and television critics who have a bad reputation, I think, with good reason, largely. I know any number of eloquent, articulate Doctor Who fans, some very young ones, who would make better television critics than the ones currently writing in national newspapers. They can write, and they aren't quite so snide or keen to show how clever they are. They actually have a joy in something. But it seems to be a television critic. There are honourable exceptions. Is again to do that sort of very dismissive thing. And as somebody, no, I don't want to sort of separate myself out though. There's lots of us have made stuff, but as somebody that does sort of creative stuff, find the glib way that stuff can be dismissed that's had a lot of hard work and skill put into it and doesn't always work. I am still more on the side of the people putting in the work than those sort of sniping from the sidelines. even that said, the bits that I picked out on episode 1 that I struggled with, I genuinely did struggle with, despite trying my hardest not to. I'm into my Sylvester McCoy. Is a great clown. He's a great physical performer, and is always trying to do something. Sometimes whether he should be or not. That was funny. That was funny. Again, I think to buy that sort of humour, you have to be dead straight elsewhere, which is why Edward Peel is such a boon. And Tony Selby sort of does both. He has the lightness of touch to be the charismatic rogue, but he also, knows when to stop messing about and give it a bit of guts and drama. I liked it. It says, I'm rather sad Glitz never came back again. He was very much a favourite character of mine, even though he was supposed to be a character called Razorback, wasn't he? That's right. And having something set on an ice planet is a good wheeze. And in places it's that they pull it off, and the rest of the time it's a sort of, it's a suggestion. We get the idea, and what's Belage up to? She's got this nice, and these guys move well. This guy at the front, this guy called Nigel Miles Thomas as Podovkin. There's Ray Knight, king of the extra agency. And I'll talk about Nigel Miles Thomas when he comes back. Hold that thought. When somebody listened to the pilot of this, the first one I did, Anthony Townsend, thank you Anthony, and his friend, they were moving house, said I lost threads too easily, so I'm trying not to. But it's hard. I'm watching it live in real time. I like the sort of pass that they give Kane, and the guy, the sculptor. He has a little bit of a sort of subplot in the novel, I recall. Oh, the novel! It was the closest I had been to actually being part of Doctor Who, it was beyond my wildest dreams. I love the fact Ace has got the ladder. That's brilliant. She is gutsy. The novel of this has etched into the ice walls AH, which was my friend Andy Holding, who knew Alistair Pearson, who did the covers, and on the other side, I think it's above the Doctor's umbrella, is TH, which is Toby Hadoke, which is me, which was the only way sort of conduit I had to anything actually tangibly Doctor Who. And apparently on later re-releases the artwork has been treated so that the initials are less obvious, although I have to say in later novels the initials weren't even etched into ice, they were just sort of splurged there. At least in my day they were subtle. But anyway, so yeah, if you look on your novel and you see a TH etched into the ice, that is actually me. But I love this scene, and I love this guard. I mean, it's silly and it's comedic, but it's well judged. It's very funny. Chris McDonnell does it very, very well, and you sort of think, oh, why haven't I seen him in much? It's because, and I was told this by a comic called Jim Tavaray, who'd done a lot of work in the States, and I then worked with him here when he was back. He's since been in quite a serious car crash, Jim. He's a lovely guy. I hope he's okay. And he said, oh, I'm mates with an actor out there, because Jim had done a Harry Potter, and so then moved out to the States and acts as on screen in the States as well as being a comic. And he said, oh, and there's this mate of mine who's another expat actor. I think they all hang around together. And he did a Doctor Who. He's called Chris McDonnell. And I went, that's what happened to the funny guard from episode 2. So he's actually had a decent career doing sort of bits and bobs in the States. So I did send Sean Lyon at Gallifrey offering to put them in touch, but because he's in LA, but I don't think that's happened yet. She's a certain type, isn't she, Patricia Quinn? Who did she reminds me of? somebody, and I can't remember who, she did then for a moment. I love the furry dice. That is a great touch. That's exactly what my spaceship would look like. I'm not allowed to use wide angles because I get into trouble if there's a mess, and there's usually a mess, and it's usually my fault. So I would definitely have... oh, and he's got... I don't think I'd have the leopard skin. They will have had great fun dressing the set. But yeah, that scene with the guard, and it's, what is it, auxiliary production, whatever it is he says. It's very funny. And a sort of Mickey take of too serious... A Mickey take of Doctor Who, the unfolding text, isn't it? Which was a very serious book, which was advertised a lot in Doctor Who magazine, and I never got because it was really expensive. But it seemed to be such an amazing thing, and it was actually lots of people being a bit being very serious about Doctor Who and examining it as the unfolding text. It's actually a very interesting book once you've done a drama degree. But if I'd bought it at the time, it would have absolutely baffled me. And John Tulloch, one of the writers of that, was rather famously pictured being pulled from the wreckage of the 7/7 tube bombings. He recovered, thank goodness, but I think has had difficulties since. But he was a rather famous picture of somebody being rescued. It's rather sad, the poor old sculptor, but I think that's ambitious, to go, well, we have this extra. He's not, doesn't even get a credit. There's somebody behind them in the set. Oh no, that's the plot. This is not. He does a good job. I like the way because he's close enough to grab them and or kill them. But Nigel Miles Thomas there, he does a sort of I am not quite human and I am thawing out a bit acting, which sells the fact that the two women are able to escape. Well done, Nigel Miles Thomas, who I believe this was his first television. I only know it because this one of two conventions I was at, I think Sophie Aldred talked about the fact that it was her first telly, and that when she'd been sent to makeup, she'd gone, but I don't have any makeup. I don't need makeup. When of course everybody in those days would need makeup for TV to sort of show up. And to accentuate the right bits, and apparently Patricia Quinn went, oh, it's her first telly, and they were all quite surprised. But it was Nigel Miles Thomas's first telly as well. I don't know much, sadly, about Nigel Miles Thomas. I hope he's well and happy. And I think this was this in the trailer? I think this scene was in the trailer again, because I taped the trailers and put them on the end of the other tape. So I had Time and the Rani and this on one videotape, and Paradise Towers and Delta and the Bannermen on the other. What a dilemma, how, because you could only fit 7 episodes, so a 4-parter and a 3-parter. It was such a relief when subsequent seasons it went 4-3, 4-3. Oh no, it went, yeah, because this season it went 4-4-3-3. And that was, I'm sure, I like to think John Nathan Turner went, the fans would like them to be in chronological order on their videotape collection. Such things were very important. And again, Dominic Glynn, the chunkating. That unfortunately that's not a great angle, because it's the one angle where you can see that Mel doesn't actually bump her head. But of course, these days, you wouldn't have to shoot that in real time. You could cheat it. You could also cheat it in the edit. You could do all sorts of things. I mean, but it does allow for this. This is a great shot, seeing him through the stairs, and the chunkety music, and I like the way the face has been made up to be all sort of frozen. It's. I think the frozen mercenaries work quite nicely, and very much helped by that music. But that was great. That was great shot through the stairs there. But yeah, Mel managed to knock herself unconscious whilst not hitting her head. Oh, Doctor. Yeah, and now this is a very much the image of what Doctor Who was doing at this time, making, I mean, apart from those bits that we don't count where the Doctor kills things, the Doctor generally doesn't kill. But there's that's very explicit there. There's the brilliant sniper scene in Happiness Patrol. And this is interesting because these two look like they're getting a storyline that's looks like it's going somewhere, because you don't realise that because these two are ostensibly quite big guest stars, so you expect them to make it to episode 3. So I remember that being quite a surprise. I really like Tony Asoba. He's got a good quality as an actor, and he's had a decent amount of work, but then turns up in Kill the Moon and has about 3 lines. It's an actor's lot, isn't it? Have a long and illustrious career, but you're still, later on having to go, a job's a job, and it's not a bad by today's TV standards. As it's good to get a job in TV anyway, and it was certainly not a blink and you'll miss it. I just rather hoped he'd have had more to do, and he did get, in the Radio Times when it said guest stars, it said Hermione Norris, Tony Asoba. So somebody in the Radio Times knew that Asoba being there was big news, but he turned out not to be long for his trip to the moon. And this is a really interesting this Wizard of Oz thing with Ace is a nice attempt to sort of marry the sort of fairy tale with the science fiction, because obviously they're really wedded to their science fiction, hard sci-fi and their films and all of that. So to give her this sort of fairy tale backstory is a nice idea. And to have her slightly damaged is really interesting, and I might talk about that when it's time to do Curse of Fenric about I don't know when I'm going to do that, but I remember my drama teacher at the time saying the idea that a lead character should say to somebody else, "You're an emotional cripple," was quite harsh, was quite hard, and strong stuff. And the whole thing of the Doctor's journey with Ace it's a very interesting dynamic, and not necessarily a comfortable one. She's a damaged, delinquent teenager who's escaping from difficult things, and but it's never over-egged. It's there lurking, without ever getting in the way of, and they go, come on, let's go and have a sci-fi adventure, which is exactly as it should be. So yeah, Krakauer, having been nasty bad guy at the beginning, is now going, I've had a chat with Magenta from the Rocky Horror Show. I shall now try and kill my boss, who's, of course, we've got Nosferatu, the spaceship. Kane is slumbering like a vampire, so it all sort of ties in quite nicely. And it is quite a sort of vampiric performance. It is quite a cadaverous. He has quite a cadaverous thing going on. Does Kane, and the makeup helps to sell that. That's nice, the way he lurks into shot there. And this is Glitz going, this is the reason this man is now a zombie is essentially because I sold him for not very much money, which is an odd way to try to get us to sympathise with Sabalom Glitz, and especially when it turns out that because of a bit of a quick rewrite that is very elegantly done in episode 3, Mel decides to go and stay with him. Yes, for your first TV, Nigel Miles Thomas, you've done a good job here. As I think it's hard to play zombified, and he emerges without embarrassment. I would say it is a good job. And then now this is Leslie Meadows as the alien, and I was talking to somebody the other day, said it was designed to be worn by a very tall actor, tall thin actor, a bit like the alien in Aliens and in Alien, but instead John Nathan Turner's mate Leslie Meadows, which is I guess why he's got a bit of a tum there, who was a short guy. And John Nathan Turner, I think it's interesting. I mean, again, I jumped on the furious bandwagon because I was at the right age so to do. History tells us that Doctor Who wouldn't have lasted this long without John Nathan Turner, and a lot of the things that he did were very canny and very smart, but he also made mistakes, which Doctor Who producer didn't. But then getting your mate who's already been on holiday in Delta and the Bannermen. When we do Delta and the Bannermen, there's a character called Adlon who doesn't say a word, who is played and credited on screen, Leslie Meadows. And it's almost like John's. We need a part for John's mate. We'll get him to play Adlon. Who's Adlon? Doesn't do anything. we'll make a guy called Adlon. Is there a part for Leslie in this? No, I'll give him the monster. But he's 5 foot nothing. The monster's supposed to be 7 foot. Doesn't matter. I want Leslie to do it. But as my agent said to me when I first auditioned for the Royal Exchange Theatre, having for many years told me how cliquey they were, when I then got the job, she went, "Oh, that's excellent because they're very loyal." And you go, "Oh, yeah, it depends what side of the fence you're on." And Leslie Meadows there going, "Well, John's being very loyal." Oh, talking of the Royal Exchange Theatre, the person that cast me was an illustrious casting director called Sophie Marshall, who is the daughter of Daphne Oxenford, who is the archivist here, who was a mighty fine actress who, I was going to say, has appeared in New Doctor Who, but she was edited out of The Unicorn and the Wasp. Her last telly was as old Agatha Christie in The Unicorn and the Wasp, and the scenes did not make it to broadcast. So, yeah, Tony Asoba may have only had a handful of lines in Kill the Moon, but at least he was still in it. Oh, as Mark Gatiss is it Les McQueen? It's a shit business. It can be a very, very cruel business, and it long service does not stop you being prey to the misfortunes and indignities it foists upon you. It was such a surprise. So Krakauer's dead, and now Balaj is dead. But of course, because this has to be sustained, you don't get the the hiss of the ice. So it wasn't clear to me that she was dead, but she is dead, and Krakauer is dead. So there's two very promising supporting parts played by good actors. I think Patricia Quinn's performance is quite odd, but Tony Asoba's great. And actually, I've liked Patricia Quinn slightly better this time round. But they're gone. Those characters are gone. So I remember that being quite a surprise, because I thought they'd have more of a part to play. So yeah, it's. I wonder how it would have helped to have had a taller monster. I think the design is rather nice, and it's not unlike that of the Alien. Oh, and this is a neat moment, of course. What a surprise! That's a great plot surprise. Oh, the Alien is the treasure. Great. And it's a sort of, and the lighting's nice there, isn't it? Because they're being the Dragonfire is shining upon them. And I used to do this. I remember being in the kitchen garden doing this. I always like playing Doctor Who. After 3,000 years, the Dragonfire shall be mine. Oh, that's why you get into acting, to look at a camera and say, at last, after 3,000 years, the Dragonfire shall be mine. Glorious. Well, I enjoyed that very much. Patricia Quinn gets a single caption. Ace is quite low down because she's not a regular yet. That was the way that they did it. Chris McDonnell In the States, yeah. There we go. So what was my favourite part of part 2? Oh, well, it's the scene with the guard. I think it's very nicely judged. It's very nicely played. It's a bit daft, but I forgive it. It's not embarrassing. It's played and pitched in the way that it was intended, and it sits nicely within the action. Doesn't outstay its welcome, and it's not done with too much of a nod or a wink. I think it's, yeah. So Arnheim, isn't he? Arnheim, the auxiliary performance codes guard. And that whole scene, I'm not just picking the performance, although he does play well. I'm picking the whole scene, so it's not me choosing an actor. I was going to check what Andrew Cartmel was going to choose, but he hasn't done it yet. Well, he may well have chosen. He hasn't told me, so I have to go forwards in time to speak to Andrew Cartmel on Zoom to see if he too has chosen Arnheim the Guard and that scene with the Doctor. And so for episode 2, now this was an embarrassment of riches. I could have chosen anything from the dice in Glitz's spaceship to the little subplots for something. Even the sculptor I could have chosen, because I like the fact that even an extra has a little bit of a tragic arc. He makes a thing and then gets killed. But I chose, in the end, I wonder if you'll have chosen it, I chose Arnheim the Funny Guard and his... and the trouncing of him through the semiotic thickness of a performance text, which I just think is brilliant.
We're on the same one there. I completely concur, because again, this is Ian's gift for characterization, but it's also his gift for comedy, because this guy is set up like you expect him to be a non-speaking guard, and you expect a really boring kind of tiny piece of plot about how we get around the non-speaking guard. And the Doctor instead decides to sort of double bluff and blind him with science. And then Briggs does this magnificent thing that the guard has been desperate for some deep conversation. And he's so pleased. And everybody loved this. And in fact, they needed for him to go on some more. And we needed some more obscure technical blather. And so I just sat at my desk in Union House, and I reached across the windowsill where there were a bunch of books, including a bunch of free books that John Nathan Turner got because they were Doctor Who related. And there was this very highfalutin analysis of Doctor Who, which I'd chuckled at before, and I knew that it was full of thickets of crazily technical prose. So I pulled that bit about the semiotic text. I just lifted straight from a book about Doctor Who, and when Briggs heard it. At a run through, he just burst into laughter. So we sort of added a little bit more, but I just love it, and it's so very Ian, and also it's wonderful because that's where we begin to open up the possibilities of the mischief, the intellectual mischievousness of Sylvester, the Sylvester Doctor.
Well, good. But I foolishly, I should have asked you what you'd chosen first, because you could cheat now and go, that's what I was going to choose. But...
Well, the thing is, the trouble is, I don't divide these up by episodes. So that was one of the things that was floating around,
right?
In the snow globe of my mind.
Okay.
Was that fantastic scene, because it's so funny, and it's so very Briggs, and it's also so unusual. It's very sophisticated in its humor. It's just great. So that was up there.
Okay, so
also I didn't know where the cliffhanger, the famous cliffhanger, is that Ep 1 or Ep 2? Is it Ep 2?
What the cliffhanger of the with the umbrella?
Yeah.
No, that was episode 1. I'm afraid I did struggle to rationalise the cliffhanger. Have you got something to say about that?
Well, that was crucial, because it's not my favourite moment, but it's a crucial moment to talk about, because Ian and I are so fed up over the years about people banging on about that. So Ian's actually sent me through the original script, so we can see what's wrong. What happens is, in the script, is not that the Doctor's walking along a gantry against an ice face. He's emerging from a tunnel so that there's no way forward. It's a sheer ice face that he has to climb. He's either going to have to go back or climb down the ice face. So he ends up trying to climb down the ice face and doing a cliffhanger, because there is no other way. There is no alternative. But that's the way it's physically shot. Makes no sense at all because he's just arbitrarily hanging off a railing. But what I'll do is I'll send you what Ian sent me, that fragment of script, because it is a failure in the directing. Sorry, Chris Clough, but somebody looked at the script and thought, well, we can't do it like that, so we're going to do this other thing, without thinking this other thing makes no sense.
Yeah, maybe if they're doing it on Blu-ray, they could CGI in a shelf just below that he's crawling to try and get to or something.
But even then, why is he
crawling down? Yeah,
instead of continuing horizontally. But in the script, it did make sense, and I'll send you the script so you can see that. And so Ian and I are both a little knocked about, because people are right, it makes no sense at all, but baby, it did make sense.
It made sense on paper, and somewhere between there and the screen, it's actually a lovely image. That final shot is great. It's just the entire audience is going, but I still don't know why he's done that.
Exactly, which is the sort of question that it's crucial for directors to always ask themselves, what is the meaning of what I'm putting on the screen? But because of the atomizing effect of the way you shoot things out of sequence, broken up into short scenes, it is possible to just lose track of the overall meaning and overall arc of things, which is why it's so crucial for a director to keep an eye on.
Well, I'm back, not from outer space, just from the future. So you now have seen what Andrew Cartmel chose and whether he and I were in accord. As I record this, I have no idea. It's curious. Time can do strange things. For example, you can wait for something for 3,000 years and not bother to find out whether your home planet's been destroyed or not. But so I'm just going to check that now so I don't get any nasty surprises. And I will see you lot for part 3. But that was it for Dragonfire part 2. At last, after 3,000 years, I get to look into camera and do the end of an episode. Thank you so much for listening to Happy Times and Places, which is presented by me, Toby Hadoke. My special guest this time around is Andrew Cartmel, who can be found on Twitter at Andrew Cartmel and online at venusianfrogbroth.blogspot.com. Making ice sculptures with me in Patreonville are Ruben Herfindahl, Mark Owen, Peter Harness, Rob Leonard, Stephen Moffat, Richard Straw, Jenny at Bluebox 99, Paul Cook, Peter Crocker, Rob Dawson, John Deere, Chris Dunford-Kelk, Siobhan Galichon, Ian Key, Joe Llewellyn, Darren Mackay, Barry Platt, Luke Atkins, Peter Adamson, Will Brooks, Peter Burns, Rick Byatt, Paul Carnahan, Paul Carrington, Andy Case, Richard Chalk, John Curley, and Mark Dakin. The music for this podcast is by Dave Gates, and the artwork by Dylan Patterson. If you want to uncover any more treasure like this, but early, you can do so at patreon.com/Toby Hadoke. There are also exclusive releases just for you there, and it's a one-size-fits-all kind of model, but there are various tiers with tiny little bonuses. If you would prefer to just give a one-off donation in order to support these podcasts, you can do that at ko-fi.com/Toby Hadoke. But I know that times are tough, and I know that not everybody can, or indeed wants to, and that's absolutely fine. I am grateful to you just for listening. But you know what you can do for free? You could go to your podcast outlet and rate this 5 stars and leave a glowing review, and that would really help with my algorithms, and they always need a bit of a thaw at this time of year. These podcasts have their own Twitter feed at Hadoke Podcasts, and you can also find things on my website, www.tobyhadoke.com, and my personal Twitter is at Toby Hadoke. Twitch.tv/Excess Malarkey every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. has live comedy with me and 4 special comedy guests from around the world. Well, until about July the 13th, and then the show will be back live at the Breadshed in Manchester. But the Twitch channel will still stay up with various archive treats and a sign of what we've been doing throughout lockdown to bring good value, in fact free entertainment from all across the comedy sphere.